Just over the road from where Aleister Crowley and Rose Kelly received the Book of the Law in 1904 is a giant edifice, the Sphinx. His mystery has been there for thousands of years. And it's something that's mentioned in the Book of Thoth, amongst other magical experiences. And we thought we'd talk about it today because it's an important aspect of magic and it's something we think you need to know, basically. So what's your take on the Sphinx, Bart?
Well, like so many things in magic, you cannot, how do they say, do not underestimate the value of the Sphinx. It's a huge thing. Yeah. You wouldn't think of it at first, you know, the Sphinx, we all know the Sphinx of the statues in Egypt and all. But yeah, there's a whole lot of meaning to it. And a whole lot of stories to be told, and a whole lot of, yes. It's once I started doing my homework, and it's one of these jumping down the rabbit's hole. You know, you know where you start, but oh bloody hell, and this and that book, and there it's being mentioned, and no.
Well, we're not gonna do that because
no, it's endless. The Sphinx is huge.
It's huge. So the Sphinx, as we know it, in terms of magic experiences, comes from who?
The Sphinx, as we know it, from the Egyptians.
Yeah, but who introduced us to the magical elements of it?
Eliphaz Levi, I think.
Eliphaz Levi.
Yes, Eliphaz Levi.
He wrote about it, and Aleister Crowley took Eliphaz Levi's knowledge onto a new plane, onto a new level, and incorporated a lot of the teachings and the powers of the Sphinx in the Book of Thoth, and in two cards in particular. The Fortune card has a Sphinx on there, and also the Chariot card. It has Sphinxes as well. And these Sphinxes, there's only two cards that Eliphaz Levi really described, isn't there? One's the Devil, and the other one is?
The Chariot.
The Chariot.
Yeah,
of course, we discussed the Chariots in recent previous videos in terms of abracadabra as well. So it's got a huge importance to the whole sort of thing. So I think also the Sphinx appears in ritual as well, doesn't it?
In initiation ritual, yes. In the neophyte.
And then was that the neophyte ritual?
Neophyte ritual, yes.
In the
I'm not sure which neophyte ritual, because it was mentioned that it's something that comes in more than one neophyte ritual from different organizations.
The thing about the Sphinx is this: it's made up of four bodies, basically. So there's always about four quarters. And if you look at the Malkut on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, that's divided into four. And they're the four elements as well. So it's a balancing energy of the four elements. And it's also a major component of ritual, as Bart said. And there is one diagram at the back of the Book of the Law. The Book of the Law? No, we're not going to do the Book of the
Law. that's last week, you know.
Look of panic on Bart's face. I don't remember discussing this bit. It's in the Book of Thoth. At the back, there is a diagram of a pentagram, which has the qualities of the Sphinx. And they're usually in Latin as well. My Latin is terrible. My pronunciation is even worse, but we'll have a go. So there's the four aspects of the Sphinx: is to will, to dare, to know, and to keep silence. And these are related to my favorite subject, the cherubic angels in astrology, which relate to Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus. And these correspond to the Lust card, the Death card, the Star, and the Hierophant. And if you look at the zodiac cards in the major arcana, you'll see that they have these four cherubs in the corners. So they're all about balancing energy, keeping things in harmony, making things work together. So we'll go through the meanings of to will, to dare, to know, and to keep silence, because it's a really funny thing, isn't it? Because in tarot readings, silence isn't the thing that we really want to have. The tarot reader is supposed to do all the talking, basically. So, and hopefully the client chips in as well with things. So you build up something that's going on. And so these 4 powers, and they're often recognized as powers of the Magus as well, too, which is kind of an interesting thing. We'll come on to some of Crowley's comments on the Sphinx. And there's one interesting thing, is that he doesn't mention to know, to dare, and to will that much. And of course, there's to will, do what thou wilt, is all those ones that you appear in the book of the law. But there's not that many mentions of them. But there is 31 mentions of silence in the Book of Thoth. 31, which may or may not be significant. But Crowley did his homework on these things, so it probably is. 31, of course, is the Book of the Law, which is probably why I tripped up my which book we're talking about. So these are powers that build up on each other, and you can see them in aspects of ritual and any kind of magical operation that you do. So the first one is to know, which is nocere in Latin. Nocere? No, sir, I don't know. No, sir, it's not no, sir, because that's something else, isn't it?
Hey, well, we're at it, Paul. So the first one, what was that? To know.
To know.
Well, that's an easy one. If you have the 4 cherubs, to know the cherub for Aquarius,
yes,
is supposed to be a man.
Yes,
or an angel.
It is the cherub of air. It is the element as well.
So that's to know. To know.
And we do a lot of this in our videos. We aspire to know and understand, and the discipline of trying to create these videos makes us go deeper into the subject than we normally would. If you've got lots of people are going to watch you on a video, you better get it right. But that doesn't stop us getting it wrong. But anyway, so this is all about striving to learn and to seek out knowledge. There's always more to learn. And there's always room for more knowledge as well. It never ends. That's the great thing about these things. We're never finished, basically. And there's the other thing about the element here is balance. So you need to be balanced and harmonizing those energies as well. You can't have a kind of 10 of swords energy or 9 of swords or the 8 of swords energy that blocks you. You'd want more of the adjustment energy, which balances and harmonizes things out.
That's why on the Wheel of Fortune, there's these 3 creatures which represent the 3 alchemical elements, and normally the stabilizing element is the one on top, and that's sulfury, and that's what the Sphinx does with the 4 elements. He stabilizes. But
the thing with Fortune is the wheel, so it's a spinning wheel that balances. You see, the more it spins, it's like it's a centrifuge, isn't it, or something like that.
But it is no coincidence that the Sphinx is on top.
Yes. Well, we'll come on to the Fortune. You're rushing ahead as usual, Bart. Hold your horses. Slow down.
I'm used to reading Crowley. That's what Crowley does. He just hops from one thing to the other.
Yes. And
nothing. Just okay. I'm finished hopping. Thou may proceed.
So the next one is to dare, which is ordere in Latin. So the daring is to do magic, is to go beyond the boundaries and take you into places that you haven't been to before. And this is very much an action kind of thing that we're talking about here.
To dare, which element would you think that is?
Well, that's supposed to be about water.
I agree. I would also say water.
Yes.
So water.
So do you think Aleister Crowley is agreeing with you then?
I have no idea. I don't know how the man thinks. I will not have the.
He jumps about everywhere, but you don't know how he thinks.
Well, then if you have the Sphinx, say the 4 elements, the Scorpio normally is the eagle, I suppose.
Yeah, because there's the eagle, there's the snake, and there's the
Scorpion.
transformations. There's powerful deep transformations, and water is the unconscious as well. So it's working within the unconscious elements that go on within all of these things. And there's an element of fear, so you have to go beyond that experience.
Yeah,
as well,
overcoming your fear. That's what also made me think it's water to there.
So the next one is to will, which is vel, apparently. Someone can improve my pronunciation, please do.
Don't worry, nobody speaks Latin nowadays anymore, anyway.
Well, the Pope does.
Yeah, but that's church Latin, that's different.
So this is the will, it's the power to make manifest. You've done the ritual, now you've got to manifest these things and send them towards your goal. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Probably Crowley was referring to this more than anything else, I would think. So, but we can argue about the number of wills on a pinhead that a Thelemite can have, can't we, another time? You know more about that than I do, Bart, don't you?
So now, to will, do you think that's fire or earth?
Well, that's fire, isn't it?
I would think so too, eh? Normally,
yes.
will.
Well, yes. So this is about focus as well. You can sort of see this as a pratyahara and samadhi and all of these elements that you have in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras as well. They'll come into these things. So this is your manifesting your desire to intense experience. Now, this is the mistake people make, what they don't do, is you need to shut up, which will make this video very interesting. Don't talk about what you're doing, what you've done, and what you expect to happen as a result of what you're doing and what you've done. Keep silent. Tasir. So this is the private aspect of things, because if you tell people that they might just say, oh, it's all rubbish, it's magic and stuff, but their energy will confuse and mess up things. They might sort of actually work against what you're doing, or they just put doubts in your mind or just mess up the whole issue in the first place. So one of the big things is to keep silence. Silence is one of the biggest guarantors, basically, of things working out. It also means you're not digging it up all the time. You've done the thing, you keep silent.
Now the thing with magic is, though, if you do it properly, it's strange, but you're supposed to forget about it.
Yes.
So it's not really like you have to keep silence. You have to do more than keep silent. You have to keep silent in your head about it.
Yeah, that's why you move on to something else. You do something else. Yeah. You don't. Otherwise, you're just scratching a scab, or you're just digging things up all the time, and you just have to let it. You have to have patience on these things.
Just let it go.
Which is a difficult skill. You're not doing the dove from above there, Bart, I don't think. So this is the thing, one of the things is to keep quiet. So this is an interesting kind of thing that we're talking about here, because we are talking about tarot as well. And sometimes there are things that you see that you don't necessarily tell your clients either. You see. So, yes, as a tarot reader, you're supposed to communicate and talk to your client, but also silence is part of the whole system as well. And it's a powerful one. So you don't feel you have to fill in the silences, basically.
Plus, you have this delicate situation, Paul. I know we're deviating. What if, which I've already had, you see in the cards something like the partner's cheating on that person?
What's that?
Like if you can see in the cards the person, your client's being cheated on by their partner, you tell them or not? Depends if they ask it. If they ask, I'll tell. If they don't ask,
it's a tricky one. There's ways and means of talking about these things.
Yeah, it is true.
So there are the four kind of aspects that go on with the Sphinx: to know, to dare, to will, and to keep silence.
And
we'll do that bit in a minute. Calm down.
It's the best part, eh?
Huh? So that's the basic system, and Crowley did add an extra element to all of this spirit, which we'll talk about in a minute, because he actually discusses this quite a bit in the Book of Thoth. So coming back to the to my notes here. So of course we talked about the Sphinx, which is on the fortune card, and as Bart talks about it, he's there, he is, and he's doing his work with the other parts as well. You have the three gunas basically. It's Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. These are the three powers of creating, maintaining, and destroying. And
that's your specialty, eh?
Yes, and the fourth one balances things out. My favorite, the cherubic angels.
Yeah.
So now, to keep silence, there are 31 mentions of silence in the Book of Thoth. 31, of course, is an interesting number because it's the Book of Libra, or of course it might be, what was the other numbers we came up with, Bart? 220 and something else for Libra?
418 as well.
480, yeah, that's a chariot, that's Abracadabra. So we're back into the chariot is also the Sphinx as well. So they're all kind of linked in together in ways that aren't always necessarily as obvious as you think. You know, then the number one card of silence is, of course, the Fool and Harpocrates, who puts his finger to his lips to create that silent kind of energy.
It is.
And, yes, Bart.
Have you ever noticed, if you Google Aleister Crowley images, most pictures he has his hand near his mouth somehow. Either he's touching his pipe, or he's sitting like this, or it is. You would think like it's like he's always doing some sort of this, but you know. It is. You just Google Aleister Crowley images, and you look at the pictures. You'll see how many pictures he's got his hand around his mouth somewhere.
A bit like Austin Powers, really, isn't it?
But in NLP, in neuro-linguistic programming, I learned that normally means that you're lying. It's like they say really? It's psychologically you're trying to.
Think I'm lying there. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, well, you can count up yourself the number of times you find silence in the Book of Thoth. So Harpocrates is the god of silence, and of course he appears on the Aeon card as well. So he has a significant place in Harpocrates. Harpocrates is the child as well. So it's an important thing. He also appears in the referenced in the Magus card, because the Magus is the messenger of the gods. And he says he is the messenger of the gods, represents precisely that lingam, the word of creation, whose speech is silence. So he's doing this polarity thing that's going on there as well. And he's making things pretty, well, as Crowley would do. He brings sex into it, as usual. The lingam represents the will, I guess, in this case as well. You're the expert on these, Bart.
I'm the lingam expert. I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
So there is another mention of it calls it the eternal silence. Sorry, the eternal silence, and that's in the Hanged Man, which is of course water, and the sound of Om, which is supposed to take you into silence and away from thoughts. It's like a mantra. So this is, yeah, and he also describes the picture of the man in the hangman in the hangman in the hangman. He calls it the sleep of Shiloh, which references sex magic kind of position as well. So we're back to sex.
And he does meditate. That's a position for meditating as well. I thought in the hangman.
What, hanging upside down?
I don't know, but when I read the equinox, at the end of the equinox, there is a part where he keeps a diary where he's having some retreat in Paris.
Well, that's like you can. It's lying on your back. You're not hanging from.
No, I know, but he's saying he's meditating in the position of the hangman.
Right. Yes. Probably with one leg crossed over the other one.
And then if it's it's like this here on the Thoth tarot.
Posing again, aren't you?
No, and then yeah, never mind.
There's a really interesting thing that's kind of describing her, because he's describing several kinds of silences as well. The speech is the silence, and this thing where there's a syzygy between the fall and the Magus. They're one and the same things. One is silence, and one is the expression of that silence as words. And speech is silence. You can't, unless you're doing, sign language or Marcel. You're usually making a sound. And then he goes on to the hangman, where he's using sound to return to eternal silence as well.
I've forgotten which book it was. I have no idea. It could be any book. But where was it? About the 3 levels of silence. The first level of silence, the most basic one, is not talking. The second level is not thinking. And the third level is no wanting. So that's supposed to be, the toughest thing.
That's a yogi kind of thing, isn't it? By the sound of things as well. It's a good thing to do. So there's expressing the silence by speaking to create silence. There is return to silence and on with the water. And then there's an interesting one, which I pretty much guarantee this one is the test of silence. Do you know which card that is, Bart?
The test of silence, I have no idea.
Have a guess?
The test of silence.
Yes.
But the only card, wait a minute, you have indeed the Fool and the Aeon remind me of silence. Now, if silence is Earth, it could also be the universe.
Shall I put you out of your misery? And because we need to get the video going, otherwise it'll be big long silences. It's actually the moon.
The moon.
The moon card. He describes it as the sun in his silence through the darkness of night and the bitterness of winter. And it says the knight upon his quest has to rely on the 3 lower senses, touch, taste, and smell. Such light as there may be is deadlier than darkness, and the silence is wounded by the howling of wild beasts. So this is going through ordeals, basically. You can see this is Abramelin, and you can see it in other things as well. So this is to explore silence and not to be scared of silence, and a lot of other things as well. And there's an intimidating thing that's going on with silence here as well.
Silence is supposed to be perfection, eh?
Yes. Well, we're a long way from that then, aren't we?
Yeah, but if you think in terms of Kabbalistic terms, silence, that would be the Ein Sof and Ein Sof Or. And then the first creation is actually an interruption in the perfection, in the nothingness, which would mean...
The imperfection is a thought.
Yes.
All thoughts are imperfections, all thoughts are...
And it is also said that creation happened, the first creation happened through...
The word, in the beginning was the word, and the word was God.
Yes.
So there has to be something before the word.
Silence.
Which is the silence. So we're going very much back into Genesis as well. So it's a very deep, very profound kind of thing that he's doing here. And Crowley is using the tarot cards to express the levels of silence and the ordeals of silence that go with these things. And, it's just funny, isn't it? Because there's just this one little diagram of a pentagram that's with the other pentagrams and hexagrams in the back of the Book of Thoth. We'll put up the diagram when I make the video for this as well. So there's not a lot said really at the back, but this is the teaching that goes through this. And if you notice, none of these, he does actually mention the Sphinx in several places, but he usually does it in terms of to know, to dare, to will, to know, to dare, to will, and to keep silent. I can never remember the order of those things. So we mentioned there is a 5th element, spirit, which Crowley added to the system, and he puts it at the top of God, with God there. And so when you exercise and work with this system of the 4 elements, because that's basically what we're talking about, expressing and working with the 4 elements in balanced harmony, because we have that cross in Malkuth with the 4 elements as well, you see. So that's all we're really talking about, basically. But of course, as we know, and it's one of my favorite statements, Marcus is in Keter after another way, which brings in the princesses, of course. So the 5th power is to go. And he says, by the harmonious exercise of these, the 4 elements, the Sphinx, the 5th element of spirit is formulated in the being of the adept. So this is not created without, it's created within you. So the balanced, harmonious energies create spirit. Because there's 2 ways to look at things. You can say spirit creates the 4 elements, and you can say the balance of the 4 elements creates spirit. And in that case, in that context, we would be talking about the aces, wouldn't we? You see.
Hence,
and the princesses are the thrones of the aces.
Yeah, and Tiferet.
Tiferet is the sun, is the center, is balance and harmony as well. You see, so all of these things come into the whole sort of system too. And it says, it is the God within. You've read this bit, haven't you, Bart? It says, this is the God within, the sun, which is the center of the universe from the human point of view, with its own particular virtue, which is to go. Now, of course, when we talk about Tiferet and the sun, where would you go to? You'd go through the high priestess, across the abyss, our favorite subject.
Yeah, here we go.
Keter, you know, we bring it in one way or another.
It's not down the rabbit hole, it's up the rabbit hole.
They don't like it up them. Okay. So this is the going, and this, because of course the element of to go is with the chariot, and this is also actually a function that we're talking about the hangman as well. You see, so this is all part of the system. So within yourself, you're moving your center from your heart Tiferet to the crown, basically.
And it's also, if you would think this Sphinx, all the cards it's connected to, yeah, because you got the Aeon as well, which is supposed to be element spirit.
Yeah. Fire and spirit. Yes.
So what we got already there, the high priestess, the chariot, the aces.
Yes. Well, we're including the high priestess in by to go because of he's talking about the sun and Tiferet, and that connects up with Keter. So you would be going up. You wouldn't be going down in this context. Yeah, although in terms of things going up is equivalent to going down as well.
And where would you, if you had to put him on the tree of life, where would you put him on the road of the high priestess, somewhere like near the abyss?
Well, he's the chariot card crosses the abyss, as does the high priestess, but that's her function is different because it's movement, and that's spirit moving. You know, the spirit moving across the water is another one, isn't it? There's this common biblical analogy as well, which is in Genesis, I think. So you're tying all of these things. So we're talking about dynamism. It's not a static thing. You know, we see the Sphinx as, you know, just looking at the Great Pyramid. But this is a dynamic process that's going on, as is magic as well. So the subtle meaning is, so when you're doing your rituals and you end up with silence, there's also this dynamism move. So there's the mystical part would be the transformation of silence and movement within of silence. And there's the magical part, which would be the culmination and the outcome of the ritual as well, you see. So if you're doing it right, you have both.
So we just said, so the Sphinx has the 4 elements, and the Sphinx himself is the 5th element. So a Sphinx is a pentagram.
Yes, which is why it's the symbol of the pentagram in the back of the Book of Thoth.
And this is you have the 3 cards that are crossing the abyss. The chariot has sphinxes on it. The high priestess with the
doesn't
moon.
Have princes.
But she's also clearly you can. I find it's the high priest. If you see what the Sphinx does and what the high priestess does, you can clearly see a connection. And you have the Hierophant. Yes. The card is one big pentagram.
Yes, and also with the 4 elements in there as well.
Yes.
So this is and also the last card is a lion. This is horizontal. Is most of the other ones are more central axis.
Yes.
It goes on there as well. So he says his own particular virtue, which is to go, the center of the universe from the human point of view. So let's do it again. It is the God within the sun, which is the center of the universe from the human point of view, with its own particular virtue, which is to go. So again, we're not talking about a static thing here. It's movement. And he says the essential characteristic of the Godhead is this faculty of going, the free movement of space and time, and all other possible conditions. So anything is possible there. It's not limited to your intention that you had in the first place to do the ritual, if you like. And it's also, we also says, he talks about keeping silence. So we're still keeping silence. This will be a silent, mystical experience of what goes on. And we see that in the before 1/8, the vision and the voice, where this idea you have the vision and the voice, but then the vision is the silence as well, and the voice is the expression of that silence. So he says, in the Egyptian hieroglyphic system, because we're taking it back to Egypt again, which is where this Sphinx comes from, this faculty of going was represented by a sandal strap, which of course is the symbol of Ankh.
Which is the rose cross.
Yes, which is the rose cross, which is the next
which is Venus, which is the whole tree of life.
Yes, and he also says the rose and cross gives the formula of love under will, the secret of attainment. Yes. So there, ladies and gentlemen, is our little foray into the Sphinx. It's, you know, the thing is, the rose and the cross is on every tarot card as well, isn't it? Yes. So we can see each card is a representation of the Sphinx in itself. So even though we have to talk about them, you still need that. I mean, silence. It's an interesting thing. If you try and do a tarot reading when you're agitated or upset or confused or frustrated or any other mental disturbance, you're not going to do a very good tarot reading. You actually need to be working from a level of silence and calmness. And it's very important to engender some of that calmness and silence in your clients as well. Sometimes I have to talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes to get them in a more receptive state, and they're less agitated and all over the place and stuff. We need to get them so that they're clear and focused. So this is one of the other teachings of this whole thing, to do a tarot reading, is to bring some level of peace, calmness, and silence to the client. And when you achieve that through the things that you're saying to them, and often they go quiet and they say, "Yeah, I'm listening," is then you're able to move them from whatever position they're in, of feeling stuck or not knowing where to go. You can see them, they know where to go next. And then you know that you've done your job. You see. So this is a powerful lesson on reading tarot cards, funnily enough. And this is my experience, is what you often have to do is if you can calm them down, get them focused and clear and receptive, and you can say what you need to say, all the things that come out, and you can see them you can see the body language changed. Right, got to get on, got to go, got to do stuff. Yes. And that's how it works. So it's a very powerful thing. Any other thoughts, Bart?
Oh yeah, plenty. When you go in, it's like we said, the Sphinx is huge. What was it? I'm still busy on Amberlane on the Practical Kabbalah.
Okay.
And now I'm just past the part where he is describing how you have to arrange your oratory, for your rituals. And he does say you should have images of all 4 cherubs, or if you can't, it's actually even preferable to put statues of a Sphinx instead. So instead of a pentagram, instead of the 4 cherubs, it is perfectly fine to put a sphinx there.
Well, the pentagram is the 4 elements plus spirit. So implicitly, four elements balanced is spirit anyway. It's always been the case. So we have that in there. So this is the picture, you know, study, you know, look through the Book of Thoth, find the references to silence and the Sphinx, which are in there. And to explore a bit further, having done all of it, there's quite a bit of Liber Aleph as well, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
On the
Liber
Sphinx.
Abba as well, I think. Liber Abba.
Liber?
ABA.
Or Abba. Book 4. Yes. We're sticking to Tara more or less on this one. So if you've got any questions and comments, stick them down below. It's a bit of love and subscribe. And hopefully we'll be seeing you on our next video. Happy days.